Hello everyone, and welcome to another weekly episode of Inking Out Loud. I'm your host, Rob Santos, and I'm joined, as I always am, by my co-host, Drew McCaffrey. What's up, Drew?
How's it going, everybody?
Now, we're starting book 13 of the Wheel of Time today, Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson's Towers of Midnight. And we read, for this week, everything up to and through chapter 29. So, now, let's get a quick recap from Drew as to what happened. My man, what happened this week?
Man, so much happens in the first half of this book. I mean, it is just one thing after another. I mean, the prologue is crazy. We get the revelation that Grandal did not die. It was Arangar who died.
Yeah, we did.
We get Lan beginning to gather his army as he marches across the borderlands.
Reluctantly gathering his army. Very reluctantly gathering his army.
Galad is arrested by Asunawa and begins to get tortured. I mean, it's crazy. And then, of course, one of the best scenes Robert Jordan ever wrote, in my opinion, would be Heath Tower with Malinarin as the Troll Accords descend. But yeah, from there, though, that's just the prologue. We have a whole lot more with Perrin and Galad, where the children realize that Asunawa is unstable and causing dissension and infighting, and so the Lord's Captain have Asunawa executed and officially ratify Galad as the Lord Captain Commander. Perrin's army, leaving Malden, runs into the children, and at the end of this part, Perrin agrees to go on trial, which is quite a decision. Meanwhile, Rand comes down from Dragonmount. He is now Zen Rand, or Jesus Rand, or whatever you want to call him.
I call him Zen Rand.
And he finally, in book 13 of the Wheel of Time, Rand steps foot on the island of Tarvalon and enters the White Tower. And he informs Egwene that he is going to break the seals in a month, and that she should, meet him at the field of Marilor, because she's like, no, you're not going to do that. And he says, yes, I will. So that's all set up. Meanwhile, Rand heads back to Tyr, where Alana has gone missing. But when he returns to Tyr, we have the discovery that Rand can now just plain see Dark Friends. He unmasks Weiramon and Anaela and allows them to go free. He's reunited with everybody, as himself, as a more stable person. Rodale Ituralda, we get a lot of him in this section as he is defending Maradon from a massive Trolloc invasion. The Saldaeans eventually open the gates and allow his forces to retreat inside the city, and the city basically the city's overrun, and Ituralda is waging a guerrilla war inside the streets of Maradon. And then I think all that's really left is Matt, where he is in Camelin now. The Golem is around, has started killing people. R.I.P. Lopin, R.I.P. Gordoren.
Yeah, oh man.
But a good chunk of the Ebudar crew that we've gotten used to has now left to go back to Tarvalon and the White Tower. So Matt is kind of more on his own than he has been in a while. He makes an agreement with Elaine to start producing dragons. And Elaine also makes a couple of very foolish decisions and gets herself badly injured. So
yeah, she does.
Yeah, that's about it for. I say that's about it, but
yeah,
it was a long recap.
A whole ton of things happening in the first half of this book. My style points are fewer than they were last week or the week before, because we're starting. I shouldn't say we're starting. Sanderson is starting to hit his stride in the Wheel of Time, but I do want to open our style discussion with a part of the prologue that I found particularly fascinating, and that was Podden Fane and how he was written in the prologue.
Yes.
And I don't know, Drew. You know more than I do, so I guess you would be the first person I'd ask. If not, I would just go to Google. But I don't know if Jordan had any input with Podden Fane on the ending of the series, or especially like on a word-by-word level of the actual writing of Podden Fane's scenes. But it reads very Brandon-esque. Like, what do you think?
Yeah, as far as I know, Brandon wrote all the Podden Fane scenes.
Right.
I don't know how much was in the notes, direction-wise. I think at least some of it, if not all of it, was. Especially given Fane's... I mean, this is a little further ahead, but Fane's interaction with the Red Veil, Aiel, which we know were directed by Robert Jordan. So...
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I did like the manner in which this scene was styled, though, like in how it was written. The madness itself being treated in Fane's head like an object or like a lens to see things through. It's treated like a character in its own way, and it's just wild. The way he says you can see something with madness, hold something with madness, or some such. Like, I don't know exactly what the word by word breakdown was, but that was some downright disturbing but incredible writing, and I loved it.
Oh, yeah, I agree. The Fane scenes at the beginning and end of this book are really well done and have always stuck with me in their creepiness.
Yeah, and I guess it's part of why I'm so disappointed in the future, but I'm not going to go too far into that right now.
Yeah, we'll discuss that when we get there.
Yeah.
But I do want to stick with the prologue in the style discussion and once again touch on Heath Tower.
Good. That's my next point. Yes. Okay.
We know this is one of the 3 prologue scenes in the last 3 books written by Robert Jordan.
See, you say we know. I just found out. That was like last week or the week before that, perhaps.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. You're the one that broke it to me. I was like, what? Heath Tower was Jordan?
Yes. Yeah. So, but I think it makes sense in a lot of ways. And it's another one of these touchstones for us as readers that gives us a little glimpse of what could have been had things gone differently in Robert Jordan's life, had he hung around longer. Because pretty much all the scenes that we know for sure he wrote in these books are among the best scenes in these last 3 books. Things like Egwene's conversation with Perrin, this Heath Tower scene, the Tower of Genji sequence, stuff like that. Just incredible work. Robert Jordan really was on his game for the bits that he wrote that made it into these final 3 books.
I'm really struggling not to explode right now at a piece of information that I just learned right now. The Tower of Genji sequence was also Jordan?
Yes.
Are you kidding me?
You're not.
You wouldn't be joking about that. Why am I asking?
Yeah, I mean, we'll talk about that more when we get there.
I don't want to go into specifics.
Our second book, but
I'm really struggling right now. When we get to it in the next episode, you're gonna hear the reaction that I wish I could give right now. Heath Tower, absolutely incredible. I wanted to ask what you meant about it. Actually, no, I guess I just got my answer. When you were during your intro, when you said you introduced it as the best scene that Jordan never wrote, or maybe you say ever wrote, perhaps.
One of the best scenes he wrote. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe you probably said ever.
So there's an emotional impact.
That's what I mean.
Scene.
It's such an emotionally wrought scene, and I hadn't considered Jordan. Not to say he can't write emotion, but I hadn't considered him on Brandon's level of that personal, tear-jerking kind of heart-ripping scene like this. When we find out that I forget the kid's name, but he's become a man in his father's eyes now, and his father is so proud of them on the eve of their death because of this decision that he made. I was just like, wow, I can see Jordan planning this scene. I can't see him writing on a word-by-word level that in the manner that Brandon moved me in this scene. I don't know. It blows me away that he wrote that. That's amazing. So good.
Yeah, it is. It's a special moment in these books, and I think we compared it back on our Warrior of the Altai episode with Daniel Green. There's a specific moment in Warrior that has a similar feel to it. There's like the emotion of manhood and brotherhood.
Coming of age and other men celebrating and just...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just beautifully written. It's his son's name is Keemlin, by the way.
Keemlin, thank you.
Malinarin's son, yeah.
Yes.
But going from there, I have one more style discussion.
Okay.
And that is around Matt.
Okay.
And you said, you mentioned going in that this is where Brandon is finding his groove with the Wheel of Time and things are cooking along, and in large part I agree with that. And there is some improvement with Matt in this book over The Gathering Storm.
I'll drink to that. Some, yeah.
However, the worst thing he ever did with Matt is in the section we just read.
Yeah, I actually have that written down. Pardon me. My Coke went down the wrong hole. Pardon. But I have that written down in my Matt section. Specifically what I think you're about to say. But this also does fit as a style discussion, though. So let's bring it up. Let's dive in. Snap your gloves on, ladies and gentlemen. The letter. Yep.
The unexpected letter. So... First off, this is...
Oh, this is first off. Oh, you're really going in. Okay. Let's feel it. Go on.
Matt is not illiterate.
No.
We've seen Matt write letters before. We've seen Matt write letters to royalty before. The guy knows how to write. He knows how to spell. There's no, Matt regresses to, a 6-year-old. In this scene, in this letter, and just so much about
9
how Matt's voice comes through in this is just plain not Matt. Mm-hmm. And I've seen some people try to argue online that's like, oh, Matt wrote it sloppily like this on purpose, and I don't buy that because that's not Matt's it's still not Matt's voice. These moments where he writes
laughing
perturbed and then says that means angry.
Yeah.
And then PS salutation means greeting, and then PPS don't mind the scratched out words and bad spellings. I was going to rewrite it, but Tom is laughing so hard. That's not Matt.
It's a great joke. It's a great joke.
I disagree. I didn't think it was that funny.
See, that goes into what we say about Brandon Sanderson's humor and how that's very subjective across the fandom as well. See, I think it's a funny joke. It's funny, but it's so not Matt that I just cringe and I just wanted to get away. I'm just like, nope. If that was coming out of the low pen, I think it'd be it sounds like the low pen wrote that
or Wayne.
Letter.
It sounds like Wayne wrote it.
Yeah, you know what? Wayne is actually a better example. Yeah, it sounds like Wayne wrote that book, and I'm just like, what the heck? This is... Yeah. I don't even know what to say. I don't know who was thinking what at the time, but it just feels so wrong. I can appreciate the situational humor. The contents themselves were funny, but the fact that it was just so not Matt makes me want oh my god. I don't know. It barely even felt epic fantasy. It's just... No.
Sure.
You said 6-year-old. To me, it felt like reading a 9-year-old. I'll give him that much credit. I was like, okay.
Yeah, maybe a 9-year-old, third grader, a third grader who just learned a couple of new words
with his 2 friends snickering behind his back. That's what it feels like reading. I was like, what?
Right.
There's going to be a booger smeared on the top corner. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the other side of my criticism of Matt in this book and the way he's written, and this very much falls on Brandon Sanderson's shoulders, is the cursing. You can just tell he doesn't understand cursing.
Wait a second. Which curse is there one in particular that you can give me? Because I may actually like cursing.
So it's bloody ashes.
Sure.
And this is the dumbest little thing. The dumbest little thing that is a major hang-up for me.
Okay.
In Brandon's hands, it's bloody ashes. At no point in all of the books that Robert Jordan wrote does a character say just bloody ashes.
It's blood and
it's
bloody
blood
ashes.
and ashes, blood and bloody ashes, like blood and fire, like things like that. It's never bloody ashes. And then every time with Brandon, it's bloody ashes. And there's just like a feel to how the cursing comes across, especially in Matt's scenes, where it feels artificial. It doesn't have the natural kind of taste, the natural flavor of profanity that you could tell Robert Jordan understood. And this is something that I've talked about in Brandon's other books that we've covered, where I have issue with his cursing. And like, I mean, it's just a natural thing, right? Like, Brandon is Mormon, and he's not a guy who's going off and cursing up a storm. He was never that kind of person, right? When you compare the cursing in his writing to obviously Robert Jordan or somebody like Matthew Stover or Scott Lynch, you can tell these are guys who have curses in their daily vernacular.
They have curses in their soul.
Yeah, and that's just not the case with Brandon.
Well, in terms of the Wheel of Time, I think Robert Jordan was so prim about how he approached a lot of it that it felt artificial to me the entire time. And then seeing Brandon apply a lot of that same formula, I'm going to go ahead and disagree vehemently with what you just said. I think Brandon's Wheel of Time cursing, from what I can remember at least, there might be a couple examples that you could bring up that might make me go, oh yeah, that's not very good. But from what I can remember, I think I enjoy almost all of it. A couple like really memorable ones come out to me. Like, for example, when I think it was actually in the previous book when Matt asked Talmanis, I think it was, where on the Dark One's blistered backside are we? I actually loved that one. That one made me guffaw at the time. Did you like that one?
No, because one of the things with one of the things that makes cursing effective in a lot of ways is the simplicity of it. And in Brandon's hands, cursing gets really convoluted. And it gets really deliberate in its like delivery, where he's trying to be clever with his curses rather than make it like put emotion and passion into it. Because that's the heart of what cursing is. It's an expression of an emotion, usually distaste. And what Brandon does with it is try to make it clever and funny rather than angry.
I don't know. Like I could say the exact same thing, for example, about my favorite Robert Jordan curse that he ever wrote while he was alive, and that was sheep swallow up in bloody buttered onions. Like that one's just as convoluted and as complex, and I love it just as much for the same reason.
But there's a core of anger in that I don't get in Brandon's cursing.
It's blistered back. I guess it kind of there's too much B in that one. It makes me see it feel like
like you can tell that that's a constructed curse, right? Like that Brandon sat down and was like, what can I write here?
Yeah.
It didn't feel natural. Like and that's to me the biggest departure. Whereas in Robert Jordan's hands, all of the cursing felt natural. It felt like something somebody would just spur of the moment say, not something that somebody had to stop and think for a few seconds and be like, ooh, that's good. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. Like,
yeah. I'm thinking now of the time that I proposed. I was like, we should write Wheel of Time curses. That sounds like a fun example. Now I don't know if we want to do that.
I know, and I remember when you said that, and I kind of just like
you were just like
because I didn't want to do that.
Okay, I remember you being very underwhelmed by that suggestion. I can kind of see why you'd be a little underwhelmed by that suggestion.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah.
I personally like every time Sanderson employs his cursing in the Wheel of Time, I personally enjoy it. And I think a lot of other people do. But I can see what you're saying. It does clearly come across as constructed. Absolutely. But for me, the humor's not lost in that fact.
Like, it's just those moments that it take me out of the story.
Okay.
It's moments like that where I can see the author's hand on the page,
I think
and I'm
that
like,
might be because of your experience as a reader and a writer, especially as a writer. Yeah, but for the average fan,
it could be.
Yeah.
It could be.
That could be an esoteric issue.
Yeah. That was my last style note here.
Two more, one of which is actually not really a point. Actually, there's three more, one of which is not really a point. It'll just be a single thing to say. But I do want to talk about this decision to include the Dark Prophecy about Perrin in particular.
Yes. Okay.
Because it shocked the hell out of me the first time I read it, as I'm sure it was meant to. But how did you feel reading that for the first time? Did you actually, for example, fear for Perrin's life? Did you think, oh crap, this could literally be a big deal for him?
Yes, I did. I vividly remember reading that the first time and being, pretty shaken by it. Especially because the only other time we've seen a dark prophecy, the things in that dark prophecy came true. And I know Brandon is on record as saying that, like that first dark prophecy, everything in this dark prophecy did end up coming to pass, just not, in the straightforward manner we may have thought.
Just like every other prophecy that's come true in the past, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, but it was well written. I liked, in general, I liked a lot of Brandon's work on these sort of apocryphal texts, the epigraphs and the prophecies and things like that. I thought he did a pretty good job of aping Robert Jordan's style. Mm-hmm. And I know he likes to say, like, oh, I didn't try to write these books in Robert Jordan's style. I wrote them in my own style. There definitely were points where he, in things like this, for continuity's sake, he had to write it in the same style as Robert Jordan would write it. Otherwise it wouldn't feel right. Having a prophecy that sounds completely different from every other prophecy in the series, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
But I think he did a good job with that. It
chilled me when I first read it, and I did myself, to answer my own question, I did myself fear for Perrin's life at that point, or for who I thought, was going to be Perrin. Now, Chapter 7 I want to discuss as well, because with Sanderson's stylistic approach here, we get some very brief, frantic switching in points of view between Gilad and Perrin, as each recognizes the danger that the other, poses, and they're gearing up for big problems. And this is something that I found to be just dripping Sanderson, and it works so well with these two characters, because as Wheel of Time books, there's expected to be big things happening in gradual ways all throughout the world. Jordan was a master at pulling that off, but there's times just like this where I feel like Brandon seizes onto something and he chases it, where things like they just start to happen and they tumble completely out of control, and it goes to a place that's epic or wonderful or both. So I want to ask, what do you think about the stark contrast of their styles here and how brazen it was? Because I think it was risky, but I loved every word.
Yeah, so I haven't given as much time to literary analysis of these books until this reading. And so I didn't really notice how pronounced the POV shifts were in this book especially until this read through. And man, there was one chapter, I don't remember which chapter it was, but it was like rapid fire going back and forth from Perrin to Gilad as they're kind of maneuvering and getting news about each other's camps. And I mean, there were probably just in that one chapter like 9 or 10 point of view breaks flipping back and forth. It was crazy.
Yeah, some of which were not even half of a page, I think.
Yeah. And the only time I could think of where we had Robert Jordan using that many point of view breaks in a single chapter is with the Chilian Call at the end of Winter's Heart.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
But that's different because there were a bunch of point of view breaks, but there were tons of different points of view as well. Here, we're flip-flopping between two characters. In Winter's Heart, we went from Cadswain to Varen to Eben Hopwill to Demandred to Olivia to Maggedian to Arangar to Osangar. Like, we went all over the place with that. It was his way of showing us all sides of this conflict. Whereas here, it's just like, there isn't a battle going on or anything. It's like political maneuvering, and it's just these two characters reacting to each other, packed into one chapter.
Yeah, so it would have been so easy to present some of this from Fael's point of view, or even have a point of view from Berylane or something like that, and the same from Galad's point of view. You could have a Bornhald. It'd be really screwed up to have a child BR point of view there. But he had so many other options, particularly on Perrin's side, to present this in some cases from other points of view, and he still chose to stick to his guns and just give us that strict back and forth flash, that frantic, what feels like it's going to be a first third of the book climax, and it's just the momentum built up in this scene is just it's masterful. It's so well done.
Very well done. I agree. I think that's a really good point to make.
My last style point is not a point. It's just the one thing I'm going to disclaim before we jump into our characters. I have pretty much nothing to say on Elaine for this part. Her sequences are so boring that I just I can't find to give.
Wow, okay. So. I mean, I had a couple of small things to say about Elaine, but I guess I could get those out of the way now.
Sure, hey, if you want to dive right into characters, let's do it, man.
This decision she makes to go into the cell, this is up there with her decision in Knife of Dreams to go to the house on Full Moon Street without the warders and everything. For her dumbest decision in the entire series. I mean, it's so...
This is the sound of me face palming with force. Oh my god. Oh my god. Yeah.
I've been on record a lot in these episodes defending Elaine. I like Elaine a lot more than many people do, but I do get frustrated with her, and the people who take issue with some of her decisions in these later books are spot on. Her willingness to use Min's viewing as some sort of ironclad plot armor is not smart, especially because Min's viewings aren't, like when the pattern's unraveling, reading the pattern may not be totally, safe to put stock in. So, yeah. But other than that, though, it's like I found some of her political maneuvering in this section interesting. I liked how smart she was grasping the implications of gunpowder and cannons, and knowing that hey, I have a jump on the rest of the world here if I can, get my hand in the pot. So she makes a smart decision for Andor here.
Yeah, I will not argue her capability as a ruler to be inadequate. Like she definitely shows herself to be competent. She shows herself to be intelligent, and for the rare times where I do feel like some political intrigue and a little more complexity with my plot, and to dive in on levels that I haven't before, there is a lot of that to be gleaned out of these chapters of hers. Like, she's definitely competent. It's just from my it's so impersonal for a large part. I'm not invested in anything she has to do until she meets up with Matt and we start to see, okay, she's understanding something large, and she's preparing not only herself but the entire world for it. So that is redeeming. But oh my god, I am just so done with. I would love to read about her from a detached point of view. Just like tell us what she's up to. Another character gives us an update. I hate being in her head. Ugh, I just hate it. Right now, I hate it.
Okay. Well, let's move on to Perrin from there.
Sweet. Okay. We're getting into Sanderson's Perrin, and a lot of people, most people, they really love how he portrayed that character. I count myself among that number. It's very clear to see that Perrin felt, comfortable to Brandon, and he still reads very much, in my opinion, like Jordan's Perrin. What about you?
I agree. I think Brandon understood Perrin. He understood the personality and the character of Perrin better than he understood most of the other characters. I mentioned on our last Gathering Storm episode how Brandon says, Perrin was his best stepping stone into the Wheel of Time, and I said, I think he might have written Rand better in Gathering Storm than he wrote Perrin, and I still stand by that. But his understanding of Perrin's internal struggle is on full display. He understands how a man like Perrin would handle the hurdles in his life and how he would react and go about achieving his goals better than, for instance, he understood Matt.
I was going to say, is it kind of like the opposite of what you're saying about Matt in terms of the fact that Perrin still feels and sounds like quintessential Perrin at heart.
And it is really interesting to know that most of this Perrin stuff here is purely Brandon. Robert Jordan left very little direction about how to get Perrin from Malden to the last battle.
Really?
Yeah, so it was up to Brandon to piece together the plot around Perrin and complete his character arc the way he does. And I think he does a really good job.
I will drink to that.
Yeah. A really good job making it fit in, the familiar bounds of the Wheel of Time. And sure, there are some very Sanderson-esque elements to it. Perrin's, his Tel'aran'rhiod training and
just the point of view shift.
Some of the battles that he has with Slayer are very reminiscent of things in some of Brandon's other books, like Mistborn and the Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
Where you can really see his fingerprints on that. But it's not so jarring. It's not so off. He's not breaking the established rules to write his own thing. It all fits. So I liked how Brandon handled Perrin.
Yeah, I mean, I loved how Brandon handled Perrin, but I'm still getting more and more frustrated with Perrin as a character, which, goes to speak a lot about Sanderson's talent in writing that character. Perrin's refusal to take responsibility for people en masse. I keep continuously being surprised that he's still denying leadership, even at this late point in the series. Even going so far as to, if I recall correctly, it was Will Alcine he told to take down every banner and just burn it.
Correct. He's
was that the Wolfhead banner?
No more Wolfhead banners.
It was Wolfhead banner. Okay, wow. I thought it was, for some reason I was like, I must be misremembering. It's
he's been griping about the Manetheren banner for like 6 books now. So.
Right. Oh, and the Wolfhead banner as well. That's just like his. I will say though, he is still slightly redeemed in the fact that he's willing to accept training under Hopper in Tel'aran'rhiod. It still makes him tolerable for me. It shows that he accepts that he has more power to earn. More experience to have, but it's Perrin. It frustrates me when he's just sitting there and he's doing everything he can to refuse responsibility for people.
Yeah, and it's really deftly done how the ultimate solution to Perrin's responsibility issues is tied into the solution to his wolf issues. Where he has to accept some things about himself and take responsibility for himself, and then he can accept taking responsibility for others who look up to him.
Yeah, and that's something
so much of his wolf conflict, his wolf brother conflict, has been this fear of losing himself and being like, there's nothing I can do about it. If I let being a wolf brother happen, I'm gonna turn into a wolf. It's just gonna happen. where, as we'll see, it's not as simple as that, and he has to take responsibility for his wolf brother nature.
Yeah, and we're gonna have so much more to talk about in the next book on that too.
Oh yeah, but here we see him finally taking the steps to accept that responsibility, where he goes to Hopper and he says, "Yes, I need to learn. Train me." That's the first stepping stone to taking full responsibility for his power as a wolf brother.
Yeah. No, I didn't mean to say the next book. I meant to say in the next part. We're going to have so much more to discuss in part 2 of Towers of Midnight.
Yeah.
Seek Boundless. That's what I was referring to. I don't know why I said next book. That was just a slip of the tongue. I'm really glad that Perrin and Fael also had their moment in chapter 16. When they confessed
to
one another. It's always rewarding to see a relationship break through a ceiling, take a next step. As much bitching as I've done about them, and them being particularly Fael. I was happy for both of them in this scene, but I wanted to wrap up my Perrin points here with one indignant all-caps question I had here for you, Drew. Why did we not continue for one more chapter this week? You jerk. The next scene is my favorite in the entire book. It catches up the 2 plot lines as well. I got there and I saw the end of chapter 29. I was like, no. We cannot stop there for this week, you bastard. How am I supposed to not read that next scene?
I almost messaged you a couple of days ago to say that we actually should stop after chapter 25, because we read more than half the book for these, for this week. When I originally did it, I just chopped it in half at chapter count, where we have 57 chapters, and so we read 29 of them. But by page count, we read a good chunk. We read about 40 or 50 more pages than halfway. So
damn, I would have loved that extra one chapter, because I went and read it anyway. Like, how am I not supposed to read the next chapter knowing what's going to happen in the next chapter? And then now, how am I supposed to sit here and not talk about how awesome it is? I'm so mad at you right now.
Well, but this is one of the things that we're getting into with these later Wheel of Time books is part 2 of like the last 4 books has kicked off with just insanity.
That's true.
Where we're going to get into in part 2 of this, that Perrin chapter, and then a storm of light right after that.
Yeah. Oh.
So.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm like shivering here. Should we jump into... Sorry, go ahead.
I have one more thing to talk about with Perrin and Fael, and I'm glad you briefly touched on it. And that is his relationship, their relationship. So as a married man myself, and I kind of wish Lauren were here on this episode, my wife, but she's working today. She works at a brewery, which is apparently essential in Colorado.
Duh.
Anyway, one of the things that has made our marriage work as well as it has been constant and open communication and understanding. And that just wasn't there with Perrin and Fael. Most of the communication was one way, from Fael to Perrin via scent. And that's not healthy, because Perrin is interpreting these scents in his own way, and Fael's not, she's giving him mixed signals where she has one scent, that Perrin's picking up on, and then she's acting in a completely different way because she wants to try to, hide it, or she's legitimately manipulating him because that's what her culture has trained her to do, and it just becomes this really unhealthy boiling pot of potential disaster in a relationship. And here finally we get some genuine communication between the two of them. They're opening their books to each other and talking things through and finding ways to understand each other and understand where they're each coming from, and it was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it goes to show what those characters could have been by now if they had just reached this moment so much earlier. Which, and for them, it hasn't been too long. They've been married at this point. Married for what, a year at this point, and change.
Ooh. Ooh,
and they spent a couple
Shadow
months apart.
Rising, they got married summer of. Yeah, it's been about a year. They got married. Would have been like summer of 999, and then at the point we're at now, it's like late summer, maybe fall, 1000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe a little more than a year.
Yeah. How long were they separated for? A couple months, I think, right? Or at least a month.
Oh, how many knots? I mean, Perrin counted, right? Was it like... I know at one point he had 23 knots on his rope, but there was a little more time after that. I mean, it was about a month.
Okay. Yeah, so I mean they've been married for about 11 months. Granted, they knew each other for a few weeks beforehand, but you know, they still have a lot to learn about the nature of marriage. I think this coming from a single guy, but you know, it's rewarding to see them taking those steps, and there's a lot to be enjoyed about those characters when they finally have those barriers out of the way.
And I think it says something for Brandon as not only a writer but as a married man himself that pretty sure this scene was all him. You know, like this was not something Robert Jordan directed needs to happen. This falls in that muddy in-between area where there just wasn't much on Perrin. That it was Brandon thought this was something that needed to happen for Perrin,
right? So maybe
and for Fael,
so much more natural because of that. You know,
and
organic, I should say.
And this is not the only time that we've seen Brandon write, a well-realized marriage. You know, we'll get into this a little more later this year in Stormlight, and then probably. Next year when we do Mistborn Era 2, there's some really well realized marriages in those books and healthy marriages.
I thought you were going to say Mistborn 1. I was going to be like, well, I think some fans would have something to say about that. No, okay.
I'm not. I mean, we can talk about the relationships when we get there, but so I appreciated the inclusion of this moment as a reader and for the characters.
Yeah. It was rewarding. Definitely was. So that wraps up my points on Perrin. Who should we jump into next? I have lots to say on Egwene. Lots to say on Rand. Some more Matt. A couple more Nynaeve. A couple more on Rodel Eteralda.
See, I don't have much on Matt at all, to be honest.
No?
That I haven't already said.
Is my next least, bountiful pool upon which to draw for this week. So, Matt's challenging me. On one hand, he's got all the swagger and the mischief that most fans love. But he's not, as we said before, he's not acting entirely Matt to me. But the Seven Striped Lass, I want to talk about that chapter. Because as a solo chapter, I remember when it was released for fans. It
was the scavenger hunt.
Yes, and I remember when I read it, and it was a great scene, an amazing scene. I still think it's great, but it didn't feel quite right. Like just Matt agonizing over opening this letter. I don't know, something about that just felt a little superficial to me. It was done well enough, and that cliffhanger was killer. Like as Matt walks into his tent at the end, and he stops at the smell of blood. I'm sitting there left at the computer. I remember it very, very vividly, sitting there at the computer going, "What? Tor? Why? Why did we do that to the fandom? Oh my god, little did I know what they were going to do in the future with A Memory of Light and then the Stormlight Archive. Jeez. Some of those cliffhangers are amazing. But yeah, we talked about Matt's letter. The less we say about that right now, the better, I think.
Yep.
I did...
yeah.
Right, and my final point there, I wrote, sheesh, Matt is going to have to start keeping a spray bottle attached to his saddle or hooked on his belt or something because Jolene needs to relax. I mean, he's a Taviran. He's not a bloody Sunday pork. My goodness. Calm yourself down, girl. That's all I gotta say about that.
Yeah. That's fair.
What do we do next?
So I just realized I left out something major from my recap, and I was kind of flipping through my notes here. Nynaeve has officially been raised to Aes Sedai.
Yeah. That's the same one I had out of two.
Yeah. So I think we got to talk about her because not only not only is this, obviously a major point for her, but the circumstances around that test. I mean, maybe you have some notes in Egwene's section as well from this.
Nah.
The way Nynaeve was treated in that test was criminal.
Criminal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it was just so wrong how that went down. So.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote, we finally get to see, yay, the test for Aes Sedai. So much vindication for fans of Nynaeve. Overwhelming, blatantly unfair odds. But for me, it was so made worth it by her one-on-one with Mirella afterward. Mm-hmm. She says, "I swear the oaths tomorrow. I am free of them for one more night." I'm just ashamed of how badly I wanted Mirella to refuse just one more time in that moment. Oh man. And they're bonded now. Nynaeve and Lan are finally bonded. We've known it's been coming for 12 books now. We're finally here, and it's so worth it.
Yep.
Great stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you feel great for Nynaeve because while in a lot of ways, if you approach Nynaeve's character from where she stands at the beginning of the series, this is a betrayal of where she started out. If you just go from step 1 to step 13 here. But so much of that change in between, makes it not a betrayal, but in fact a full realization of Nynaeve's character, that she is Aes Sedai now. And on top of that, she doesn't give away what makes her Nynaeve. Her core is still there. It is so perfect that she is made Aes Sedai despite essentially failing the test. And that she uses this as an opportunity to expose the problems and the hypocrisy of the Aes Sedai as an institution. Right? Because that's what Nynaeve has always been about. In her judgment of the Aes Sedai, which is largely on point, her criticisms of the Aes Sedai are justified.
Agreed.
They are vindicated here.
Yeah. I've said everything I need to say about how much I love Nynaeve by now, and I'll just reiterate that fact. She's perfect, and I love that character. I didn't like that character at all until I hit like 26, 27, and now she might be my favorite female character in the Wheel of Time. In terms of where she starts, where she ends up, the meaning of the journey that she takes, how it changes her, how authentic and organic it feels. It feels despite the stark contrast of these two different people that she starts off and ends off being, and how she just continues to do all that while sticking so true to her core being. And just being a nurturing, loving, caring individual who wants nothing but the best for everyone around her. She's awesome.
She is awesome.
So I have a couple quick points, actually just one, really, about Rodel Ituralde. I just want to talk about how awesome and epic these scenes are.
Oh, yeah.
This is what I had been waiting for since my early teens. Big-ass battles, lots of shadow spawn, not individual strikes where they're over in the course of, one scene, but a protracted losing battle as the blight is surging. It's so damn heavy metal. The tactics were cool, especially to an inexperienced reader like myself at the time. Those clever, bloody monsters. I was like, oh, shit. And I particularly appreciated how the first of those scenes ended with the battle that just kind of resumes hopelessly. It gives you that feeling of frantic of time slipping away. It's like you're shouting to Rand, you're saying, listen, we have to hurry up, there's some serious stuff happening in the Borderlands. It kind of sticks in the back of my mind as I'm continuing to read all these scenes going forward, and I just want the last battle to truly begin. And we do get that kind of excellent moment in Egwene's point of view when Sylviana, what am I saying? Walks in, her keeper walks in and informs her that the Borderlands are at war, and that the last battle has pretty much officially begun. It's just, chef's kiss. So good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I liked, Ituralde from Knife of Dreams through now. Like, we're seeing why he's a great captain. Why he has this reputation.
He's even called on it. What is a great captain capable of? You're going to show me? He's like, all right. You might learn a thing or two. Pay attention, son. So good.
Yeah. So, shall we move on to Rand, then?
Sure. Do we want to do Rand last? Or right now? Because I still have some about Egwene to say.
Oh, you still have some Egwene. Yeah, let's do Egwene pretty quickly here, then.
Okay. Egwene, now, more irritating to read than she's ever been. I think. In my opinion. I spent a lot of time last book championing her. I can't find anything redeeming about her save the occasional intimidating one-liner at this point, in this part. Her insistence on formality in private has gone past anything resembling, tough but necessary for now, and just straight openly into sheer childishness at this point, I think.
Yeah.
But what really pisses me off on a deep level, because I admit that's kind of superficial, that previous point that I just made, her complete lack of logic in her stance, i.e. Rand in the Seals. Is she completely incapable of the simplest of thought experiments? Like, what is the alternative? Wait around months, years, while the world starves and the Trollocs advance?
This is where she has bought so thoroughly into the mystique of the White Tower and the Aes Sedai, the singular Aes Sedai as a symbol, and, that she doesn't need to critically think anymore because she has the weight of Tar Valon behind her.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, yeah.
And it's frustrating because because we see her earlier in the series actually being pretty clever and thinking things through and figuring things out in a way that only Egwene can. And she just abandons that now that she's the full-on Amyrlin.
Yeah. And
she could just say, like, no, I don't want to because I'm the Amyrlin.
Yeah, it's so illogical that it defies explanation. Save that Egwene is just being a spoiled little brat who can't come to grips with the fact that she doesn't rule every single soul on the planet.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's pretty harsh. But
it's pretty frustrating, and I mean, I don't want to dig into it because it's just obnoxious, but her relationship with Gawain is such a mess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great counterpoint, honestly. I don't know if Brandon did this on purpose, but it wouldn't surprise me if he did. How right when Perrin and Fael are reaching an equilibrium in their relationship and figuring things out, Egwene and Gawain are worse than ever, where Gawain's leaving to go back to Caemlyn, and because there's no real communication between the two of them. There's no honesty. There's no.
I would say Gawain is being everything honest. Like he's too honest.
I when I say there's no honesty, I mean there's no honesty between them.
Oh, okay.
In their relationship,
like
there's
honesty.
There's selfish honesty, but yeah, mutual honesty is a good way to put it. There's no willingness to meet each other halfway. There's no willingness to compromise. Like there's just no functional communication between the two of them, and it's awful.
Yeah,
it's awful.
Now, to get slightly past my hatred for Egwene right now, I do really, and before we dive too much into Rand al'Thor, because I'm going to have a lot to say about Rand, obviously, this book of all books, I do want to talk about their roles now, they being Egwene and Rand. It occurred to me a few days ago that they've really done a reversal in positions for this book and the last book. Because The Gathering Storm saw Rand surrounded by advisors, delegates, subjects. He's issuing orders in scale, and we have Egwene imprisoned in the White Tower as a novice, and then just straight up imprisoned. Meeting with many personal, in personal circumstances to influence Aes Sedai and point them in the right direction. But now we've got it kind of reversed, with Egwene consolidating her power, sitting in the Amyrlin seat, while Rand, in his apotheosis, thanks for that word, by the way, great word, Drew, trying to correct things in his life on every personal level that he can. And more, like the characters of Rand al'Thor and Egwene al'Vir, they're being set up as these ultimate opposing forces to mirror what happened during the Age of Legends. Right?
Oh, very
Between
much,
the dragon and Latra Posay.
Yeah, Latra Posay Decume.
Yeah. Yeah. But going forward, I laughed with horror. I laughed with, and then found out that laughing with horror is actually possible when Gawain stepped into Egwene's trap as she walked into the room, furious. I literally sat there the first time reading that in shock, just staring at that last line. I just went, uh-oh.
Right.
Oh, no. And to wrap up Egwene, I want to say I love one particular line of hers. Just one so far in this book. When she tells Ramonda, "You did not inform me of this meeting, so I assume you do not want my words. I have come merely to watch."
Yeah.
Chills. That's the face of the Amerlin I like. I feel like Egwene could even be my favorite character if we only got to see her from the outside. It's just all of these scenes where we're stuck in her head that make me want to claw my hair out. Nice. Perhaps a big Egwene for here. Yeah. Just have Rand now.
Okay, let's tackle this beast then.
Okay.
Because Jesus Rand, Zen Rand, is such a refreshing turn. I love the way Darkwind was written.
Aesthetically,
it was very, very well done. It was compelling. But after so long of seeing his descent, seeing him rise back up now is wonderful. However, I will also say, it's less frustrating now, on a reread, but the first time I read this book, the fact that we didn't get any points of view from him, all of these scenes were from other people's perspectives. Mm-hmm. I was so frustrated. I was like, what is going on in his head? Yep. But it was a smart decision, and it's one that I want to compare, back to The Dragon Reborn, with Robert Jordan's decision to have almost no Rand points of view in that book for strategic narrative purposes, and it's the same thing here with Brandon. He doesn't want us to be in Rand's head. He's saving that for A Memory of Light.
Yes. Oh,
what's most important here with Rand's character arc is, as you said, he's going around and fixing his personal missteps. And so it's more important that we see from the perspectives of those Rand wronged how they react to him attempting to, rebuild those bridges, heal those wounds. Because we already know Rand, the important thing with Rand here is that he's doing this. He's making the effort. Okay, we can see that. We don't need to be in his head to have that happen. It's more important for us to be in the heads of those he's interacting with so we can see the fruits of Rand's labor. It's really smart. It's really, really well done.
Oh my god. Like this is my favorite character of all time. Across any book, any movie, any game, any comic, even though I don't really read those, any other form of art which you choose to examine, no character tops, across any medium, my love for this character. Zen Rand changed my life. It sounds kind of lame to state it that way. He really did. He taught the young testosterone-fueled 20-year-old that I was at the time that there's a lot more to strength than strength. I was seeing that character who had so recently been the patriarch of all things brutal, impersonal, necessary, and turn into this open and warm and more importantly confident symbol of hope. It inspired me a lot in my early 20s and it changed how I kind of act around people. And it really inspired me to relax. And that was also right around the time that I met you, Drew. I was like 20 years old or something like that, maybe 19 years old. So, with all this happening in the Wheel of Time, we got to geek out so hard in the early days of our friendship. Zen Rand marks such a huge pivotal turning point in my life. I don't know how to articulate how much that character has moved me. It's for what has been wrought, that chapter. I remember seeing that it might not be such a big deal for a grown man to cry once in a while. Mm-hmm. What a masterwork of character development, transition. I feel like I'm there every time I read that scene, just as a reverent witness, like everyone else. I don't know how Sanderson managed to accomplish this. I wouldn't even know how to unpack it. It's just perfect the way it is.
Yeah, it was a great counterpoint to where Rand left Tam and Min in the Gathering Storm, and then seeing him now apologizing. Yeah. Something Rand never would have done before Dragonmount. So much of his development and learning to be the Dragon Reborn was Rand learning to be unapologetic. Saying, I'm doing this because I have to. I don't need to apologize to you. And then now he's realized, yes, I do have to apologize. I do have to, own up to what I'm doing. And I need to be doing what I choose for good reasons. I can't just dump everything off on, I'm the Dragon Reborn, I have to fight the last battle, so that's my excuse. And you can all screw off if you disagree with me. Now, he recognizes the damage he's doing to those he loves, to those around him, those he trusts, because he's been so unapologetic thus far.
Yeah. There, clinging to his father, the Dragon Reborn began to weep. Mm-hmm. I know I say shit like this all the time, but that may be the best line in the entirety of the Wheel of Time. That line hit me so hard. Oh my god. I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I love going on though. I love the added level of just like meta power that Rand is starting to display. We already have his Ta'Veren effect. We're familiar with that, and there are some other abilities that he has now that we're not going to discuss quite yet. But his ability now to look into a dark friend's eyes and know them.
Yeah.
It's just so badass. It's nothing but badass. If I wrote this down, if you could concentrate enough badass into like a small enough volume, and then you condense it into like a physical essence, and then you figured out the boiling point of that essence, and then distilled it 40,000 times, you still wouldn't approach the 10th part of how badass this is. Like,
yeah,
that probably just pissed off a bunch of chemists.
I'm glad you brought this up, because this is my moment to give my little defense of Weiramon that I've mentioned in the past. So we see Rand directly unmask 3 Dark Friends in a short span in this book. One of them we haven't seen quite yet. It's going to happen in a few chapters. But one of them, the guy throws himself out a window, right? Anayela, cries... Torquemund, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Anayela, cries out in fear and, turns her face. Weiramon stares him down. Weiramon is the only one who meets Rand's eyes. It says his eyes are, watering in pain, but he meets Rand's eyes. Weiramon is so much more than the bantam rooster, cocky loudmouth that he gives himself, portrays himself as. We see him, take down the facade very briefly in the Path of Daggers when he, kind of smacks down Gedwyn. But we see it again here. The Weiramon that we're given to understand through most of the series would have been such a pansy in the face of Rand in this scene. But he has there's more to him. There's more to him. And I appreciate him as a villain because of that. So.
Well said. It's cool to know that the Shadow doesn't need Alana to find him now. I was like, damn, and he just knows that the Shadow doesn't need Alana to find him now. I was like, that's kind of intimidating. That's pretty cool, though. And then the last thing to talk about with Rand for this part, for me, is the return to Bandar Eben in that entire chapter.
Okay.
So incredible. Why can I not stop glowing, if you'll pardon the expression, about these Rand solves everyone's problem sequences? It's so hilarious and deep at the same time. When Rand gets the chance to tease them, and us, by extension, with hints at the nature of his abilities, he goes, well, you just happen to open the exact number of wrong sacks. That's technically how the pattern, logistically accomplishes it. But the manner in which Rand says it so confidently, almost offhandedly, that's where I draw the humor from. It's just wonderful. I love it.
Yeah, it's it's two sides of a coin, right? Like you said, that's the way the pattern accomplishes it. But at the same time, we're given to understand it's like, no, like that really was like a direct,
If this was Darth Rand that returned to Bandar Eben, those would have all been continuously spoiled.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Exactly. And I love the symbolism around Rand in this, where everywhere he goes, the clouds break.
Oh yes,
the
and the
sunlight
tea tastes
comes
good
through.
Suddenly.
Yeah.
And then somebody whispers, "He's here."
Mm-hmm. But I just specifically, I love the symbolism of the clouds like just breaking in an area around Rand. It's the only place where you're going to get sunlight now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
awesome.
he has achieved that level of just transcendence.
Transcendence. That's a good way to put it. Yes.
Because the dragon is one with the land. The land is one with the dragon.
Yeah, the dragon is insane. And so, as he tells... Damn it, what's the guy's name in Bandar Eben? The guy starts with an I. The one who's holding the docks.
Oh, I don't remember his name.
Damn.
Return to Bandar Eben. That was chapter 25, right?
Rand remembers his name.
25?
That's the important part. Rand remembers his name, and as he tells that man, he says, it's not, that's not mad. It's the whole world that's mad, my friend, because...
Iralin,
thank you. I was going to say...
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say Iralin. I was going to say Iriali, that's Stormlight. Duh.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that wraps up all of my character points, but shit, I have 2 questions in my miscellaneous points and more miscellaneous points around them. Do you have any other character points to get out of the way before we do this, though?
Just want to give Nynaeve one more shout out for healing madness.
Oh, that's in my miscellaneous points. Thank you. Absolutely. Shout out to my girl Nynaeve. She just up and just pulls out another impossible miracle out of her ass. It's like she just pushes them aside before breakfast every morning now at this point. I love it.
Yeah.
So good.
It's wonderful. Okay, so let's dive in here.
Okay, I remember so vividly my first impression of every single part of this book. Oh my god. Brandon managed to piss me off in a good way. Not as a writer, but as an author in a good way in this scene. For the first time that I can think of, with what was literally the first word of a scene he pissed me off with. And that scene was Grendel sipped on her wine, or sipped on her whatever she was drinking. And I nearly put the book down right there. I was like, what? This bitch is still alive? And then it continued inside Natrin's barrow, and I realized what was happening. I realized it was just a past sequence, and I was prepared to read Grendel's death. And I was stunned to see that, oh my god, my initial reaction, accurate. Bitch is still alive. Damn it. I was so shocked by that. I was like, ugh, it just pissed me off.
Yeah. That was a wild revelation.
Yeah.
The first time.
Did you have that same moment I did, though, when you flipped that prologue page and you saw Grendel sipped on her wine? Did you go, like I did? I was like,
yes. I think I had a very similar response. Like it was like, wait, what? And then I was like, oh no, okay, it's just a rewind, A rewind. And then it ended, and I'm like, no freaking way.
Yeah. Oh my god.
How?
Yeah.
So.
Apples first.
Almond Bunt. The return of Almond Bunt.
Everything about this scene. Almond Bunt from The Eye of the World was the last time we saw him, wasn't it?
Yep.
Everything about that scene had me, especially at the beginning of this book when I didn't know the direction that Rand was heading in yet when I read it for the first time, everything had me just jumping for joy. And you may think I'm exaggerating. Drew, you know me well enough to know that I'm not exaggerating. I was so damn stoked for this transformation of Rand's that years later, I'm still reverent. It's such a perfect scene in its imagery, in its meaning, the way it welcomes us into the next volume, as well as the next stage in Rand's journey. Oh my god. I was strongly considering bringing this up as an honorable mention in the most recent episode that we just recorded, not from the regularly scheduled episodes, but the best opening lines or best opening pages. But I couldn't find a way to justify this being as a page or an opener at all because it was like chapter 2, right? So
yeah, it's after the prologue, right?
Oh, chapter 1,
yeah. But I loved how full circle it was. So when I first read this, I was actually kind of annoyed that it was Elman Bunt. That I was like, okay, like this almost feels fan servicey that Brandon brought this guy back. And then I reread Eye of the World, and I realized, no, it was perfect. Because Elman Bunt talks about how Rand and Matt giving them a ride on his wagon to Camelin, he's like, maybe I'm going to stay. And maybe I'm going to keep going on. Because like he...
Yeah, his
life is changed. And he says in Eye of the World, Robert Jordan lays the stage for this guy to move on and go to Tar Valon and be there for Rand coming down from Dragonmount.
Yeah, I think it was Gawain, I want to say, who was interrogating Matt about Rand al'Thor, or asking somebody about Rand al'Thor, and saying, like, all these people who are going on and changing so many things, they all seem to have one thing. There's one common denominator in this equation, and they've all met Rand al'Thor. And he makes specific reference to this farmer. Yep. Like, I was just, it's...
Stayed through the winter riots and supported Morghese, and
Yes.
Yep.
Excellent. The first of my two questions. I'll just ask them two actually consecutively here. My first question, who took Alana? It's Shaidar Haran, right? It's got to be Shaidar Haran who took Alana, kidnapped her, as one of his
I don't know if we
have
like a very specific answer to that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. I wrote down probably Shaidar Haran as one of his final acts in this world before collapsing into, spoiler, the world's biggest disappointment later in the next one.
I mean, I don't think it really matters who took her. It was probably the use of the true power in some manner so they could avoid detection. And
I hadn't considered the true power. I was just thinking, like, how could somebody get away with channeling a gateway undetected? I mean, there's ways. I'm sure the Force.
Yeah, I mean, you could mask yourself and invert your weaves,
whatever, but I don't know. It still struck me as like, damn. It's just like, I don't know. It was so ominous. I felt like Shaidar Haran. It had to be like the last thing he did. I don't know why. I'm struggling. I'm reaching for something that he did to have mattered. Second question: when Nynaeve is healing or attempting to heal Rand's madness, the shining light in Rand's brain. Anything you want to say about that? Because I know there's no definitive answer to this, but I want to throw that out there. I want to dangle it in front of you and see if I get a nibble. What do you think?
I've always struggled with that.
Okay.
Finding an adequate answer for myself. I recognize what it is, like what it symbolizes, his apotheosis, his inner peace now, and that he's fully realized dragon, and that it like holds off the madness and all that. But the fact that the madness is something substantial that Nynaeve can like heal, like basically she's like pulling out these thorns from their minds, throws a wrench in that makes that glow by necessity be something more than just a symbolic glow. It has to have some substance, some metaphysical substance to actually hold off the madness, right? Like,
well, the madness is just a compulsion weave for the true power, right?
I mean, sort of, more or less.
Essentially, sorry, yeah, it's not like a definitive answer,
but so because of that, this glow has to be something in world. It's not just Nynaeve seeing a representation symbol of Rand's inner peace. That glow has, like I said, metaphysical substance to combat the
sure.
Yeah, and I don't have a good answer for what that is.
Right, and a lot of characters also say they can see almost a warping of the air, a glow around Rand at the same time. Like there are things happening that that even our conventional, even like our current understanding of, our final understanding of the true power. Listen to me, the true source, the one power. Like we won't have answers for this, but I agree. There has to be something greater happening. It's not just a symbol. She's seeing something bigger, something that we don't get another glimpse of that I know of. The rest of the series, but I still find it really, really cool. It's totally badass. It's the dragon becoming one with the land in reality. It's just so cool.
for our listeners, when this post goes live on Facebook, chime in the comments. What do you think this glow in Rand's head actually is? I want to hear some good theories.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. I'd love to see what people gotta think.
Yeah.
The circumvention of the oath rod. That was intimidating. That was all. That was intimidating with the ease in which that was seemingly done. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Do we think that Brandon perhaps drew upon some fan theories as to how getting around the oath rod could be done? Because if Brandon himself just came up with three ways, because he needed to write 3 ways, that is insanity. I was like, wow. Like, how did he get these ideas?
I really don't know. I mean, they may have been in the notes from Robert Jordan.
Oh, I didn't even consider that. I hadn't even considered that. Oh my god.
Yeah. But I don't know if there's an answer on that, whether that is something Brandon came up with himself or if it was at RJ's direction.
Interesting. Sylviana entered Egg Wing Study. I just said that already. One more chapter. I said that already. Oh, that's the next part. Yeah, we're good. I'm through all my miscellaneous thoughts and questions.
Okay. Well, in that case, do we want to move into the final draft?
We can. I'll start
it.
us off because I have another disappointing choice. Well, I mean, it's a good choice, healthily for me. Well, actually, no, it's not a good choice healthily for me because there's still a lot of sugar in it. I am still refraining from drinking any alcohol. I'm like going 11 days now without drinking anything. I today have just been drinking a standard, plain old, refreshing, refrigerated Coca-Cola.
Oh.
Legit, that's all I've been drinking for the entire course of this episode. It's awesome. I mean, I don't drink a lot of soda. Typically, I usually just drink water or whiskey or beer or juice. I don't really drink like fizzy drinks. I don't even mix alcohol with them. But it's been a long time. I'll tell you this. It has been a long time since I've had Coke, just plain Coke, and it's really good. I'm just like discovering it all over again. I know that sounds sad, but it's delicious.
All right. Okay. Well, I am drinking a beer. I believe I mentioned on our last episode that I was very excited for this one in particular. I found this beer, I think, last September. So this has been sitting in my refrigerator for a long time.
Damn, that's a long time. Is it rusty yet?
I'm drinking a mixed fermentation saison with honey, coriander, and lemon verbena from Jackie O's Brewing Company in Ohio.
Ooh,
now,
right across the lake.
So when I say like a mixed fermentation saison, this is like there are multiple types of like yeast strains and like bacteria strains in this beer so that it will develop over time into something more than just the base beer.
Okay.
This particular one is bottle fermented, so when they bottled it, there were live yeasts in the bottle. And it was, I mean, very clear. When I popped this before the episode, it bubbled over quite a lot. But this is just delicious. I'm thrilled with how good this beer is. Very light. I mean, just packs like a nice funky punch. It's not like overwhelmingly Brett funky like Brettanomyces. It doesn't have that like barnyard kind of, you'll get in some like French and Belgian saisons, but it has a grassiness to it. You can really taste like the wheat base in it. It's delicious. Anyway, why I was so thrilled about this beer though, and that it's perfect for the part we just read. This beer is called Pockets of Sunlight.
Oh man, I am so glad that I went first for the final draft. How the heck am I supposed to follow that up with a regular cold glass of Coca-Cola? A pocket full of, was it sunlight or sunshine?
Pockets of sunlight.
Pockets of sunlight. Oh
yeah.
Man, that is so nice.
Yeah.
You immediately thought of that in September, probably. You thought of Ren.
Oh yeah, 100%.
You've been sitting on this for 7 months, 8 months.
Yeah, just about 7 months. I mean, I don't know if it was for sure September. It might have been August. It was around when we started, when we read Eye of the World. So.
Oh my god, were we already on Eye of the World last August? Was September-ish?
I think so. Oh
my god. We totally.
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah. What am I saying? We've been recording episodes now for a year and 2 months now.
Because we did Foundry Side at the end of June.
That's right.
And then we did Ruin of Kings in July, and we went right into Eye of the World after Ruin of Kings. Yeah.
I keep forgetting how much we've recorded so far. That's amazing.
Oh yeah, we're cruising now.
But it's been a somewhat short episode for today. It looks like that's pretty good, pretty efficient of us for a change.
Yeah, only an hour 20-ish.
Yeah, hour 20-ish, something like that.
Anyway, man, what episode number is this? 60?
I actually have no
60?
idea. I was gonna go and count before this, and I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna say the book. As long as I say which part of which book, people aren't gonna get it confused in the order. But yeah,
I think this is
gotta be
61.
61 or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it's not 61, you can all yell at me online. But
hey, yell at me too. Don't just take all the burden for yourself. Don't be a martyr. Okay? Don't be selfish, Drew.
Okay. I'll let you take that fall.
Thank you.
Anyway, next up, we will be going right into the second half of Towers of Midnight. As always, check us out on Patreon, support the podcast. You can get early access to our episodes there. Exclusive short fiction written by Rob and myself. We have some bonus episodes. We just recorded an episode on our favorite opening pages, which Rob mentioned on this episode. So yeah, check us out there. All of those proceeds go toward Danny, our artist, and Pat, our sound engineer. And as always, I'm your host, Drew McCaffrey. With me is my co-host, Rob Santos.
What's up?
Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.